Stopping your reactions is the first step to becoming untouchable. If you truly want to reach that level, there is something crucial to understand. Every time you react impulsively, you surrender your power. Most people live trapped in a constant state of reaction. They let themselves be swayed by any careless comment, any disapproving look, any situation that doesn't align with their expectations. And as long as you remain reactive, you will always be predictable, easy to manipulate, and ultimately easy to wound. Carl Jung warned that uncontrolled emotions are not simply random storms of feeling. They are reflections of unresolved shadows within the unconscious. If something disturbs you, if it destabilizes your peace, it is rarely because the world holds true power over you. More often, it is because there is a hidden wound inside yourself that you have not yet mastered. This is where the real problem begins. Why do you react so much? Why does a simple word pierce you like an arrow? The answer is almost always the same. Because you care too deeply about things that should not hold such weight. You care too much about the opinions of strangers. You crave validation from those who don't truly matter. You ache for approval, for acceptance, for the fleeting comfort of being liked. But here lies the trap. Those who desperately seek approval become prisoners of it. History is full of examples. Emperors who ruled with immense armies but collapsed under whispers of betrayal. Leaders who were swayed not by strategy but by the fear of losing favor in the eyes of their court. Even the mighty could fall because they cared too much about what others thought. Those who are truly untouchable understand something most people never realize. Not everything deserves a reaction, least of all your precious energy. Every time you rush to defend yourself, every time you justify your worth, every time you respond with anger or frustration, you are declaring that others still hold sway over you. They can reach inside your mind, pull your strings, and make you dance. And here is the haunting truth. As long as you live in this reactive state, your power is never your own. It belongs to whoever chooses to provoke you. What happens when you learn not to react? Imagine someone hurling an insult at you, yet you remain calm, your eyes steady, your face unmoved. Imagine a provocateur circling you like a predator, but your expression does not shift, not even a fraction. Imagine chaos unfolding all around, yet your heart remains steady, your breath unbroken. That is the moment when you begin to understand what it means to be untouchable. Non-reaction is not weakness, it is not passivity. It is power, pure and undeniable. When someone attempts to rattle you and you do not flinch, the energy returns to them. Their arrows fall blunt at your feet. They realize they no longer have the ability to control you. That is when frustration grows in their heart, confusion stirs in their mind, and respect, even unwilling respect, begins to emerge. Philosophies across centuries have echoed this truth. The Stoics of ancient Rome believed that a man's greatness was measured not by how loudly he shouted, but by how firmly he stood in silence. The samurai of medieval Japan were taught to face death without trembling, to keep a calm gaze even when challenged, for to show fear was to surrender one's honor. Across cultures, history reveals the same lesson. The one who masters his reaction masters the battlefield, whether it is fought with swords or with words. But why does this simple act of not reacting carry so much power? Because the world thrives on emotional exchange. Every provocation is a hook cast into the waters of your mind. If you bite, they reel you in. But if you remain still, if you let the bait drift past without a glance, the fisherman is left powerless. In daily life, this truth is everywhere. The coworker who tries to undermine you loses their grip when you do not rise to the bait. The stranger who hurls an insult on the street looks foolish when you walk by without a flicker. Even within families, the one who refuses to be pulled into petty quarrels slowly transforms the entire dynamic. It is here that we begin to glimpse the essence of becoming untouchable. the shift from living as prey to living as stone, unmoved by every passing storm. So how do you begin to train yourself to stop reacting? The first step is deceptively simple. Pause before responding. Most people fire back without a thought. Someone criticizes them, and instantly they defend themselves. Someone raises their voice, and their temper leaps to match it. But the moment you learn to insert a pause, a single breath between stimulus and response, you take control of the entire situation. In that pause, ask yourself, does this truly deserve my energy? Almost always, the answer is no. Observation without engagement is another key. Jung spoke about the importance of witnessing life without identifying with every event that unfolds. Not everything that happens around you requires your participation. Think of yourself as a spectator in a theater. The actors may shout, fight, or stumble, but you sit in the audience, watching without rushing onto the stage. Life becomes far lighter when you learn to separate what demands action from what is merely noise. Selective indifference is the next discipline. This does not mean becoming cold or lifeless, but rather choosing deliberately where to place your emotions. Consider it like a warrior choosing which battles are worth the sword. You cannot prevent someone from trying to provoke you, but you can prevent yourself from stepping into their trap. Indifference, when applied with wisdom, is not weakness. It is armor. Modern psychology echoes these ancient truths. Mindfulness practices teach us to watch thoughts rise and fall like waves without being carried away. Neurological studies show that people who pause and reflect before reacting have lower stress levels and healthier relationships. Emotional mastery is not just philosophy. It is science, etched into the very wiring of our brains. But remember, mastery takes training. At first, the pause feels unnatural. Your body trembles with the urge to defend, explain, attack. Yet with practice, the pause grows longer. Your awareness sharpens. The noise of the world loses its grip. Until finally, one day, you realize that you no longer live at the mercy of provocation. Instead, you live as the calm eye of the storm, untouched, unbroken, untouchable. Your words are not the only weapon you carry. Your body speaks louder than you realize. When someone tries to push you off balance, it is not just what you say, but how you carry yourself that reveals whether you are strong or fragile. Master your body language. Stillness itself is power. A steady gaze, a calm breath, a neutral expression, these are not passive acts. They are shields, weapons sharper than any blade. When chaos erupts and you hold your posture unmoved, those around you begin to sense something they cannot name. They realize they are in the presence of someone who cannot be shaken. This is why silence and composure terrify manipulators. They expect you to lash out, to defend, to crack. When you don't, they lose their map. They no longer know which buttons to press. In that moment, control shifts entirely to you. Strategy, not reaction, becomes your path forward. Instead of meeting anger with anger, you learn the art of choosing when and how to respond. Sometimes the most devastating answer is no answer at all. Sometimes a quiet smile disarms an entire confrontation. And sometimes measured words delivered after thoughtful silence can cut deeper than rage ever could. History is filled with leaders who wielded silence as a weapon. Think of Queen Elizabeth I, who stood silent for long minutes before Parliament, letting the weight of her presence speak louder than any speech. Think of generals who revealed nothing of their strategy through expression, leaving enemies uncertain and restless. To speak less, to move with intention, to let silence carry meaning. This is the language of power. And remember, strategy means thinking long-term, not being carried away by the moment. A reactive man wins an argument but loses the war. A strategic man may let go of the small victory to preserve his energy for the triumph that truly matters. The lesson is clear. When you master your body language and replace reaction with strategy, you transform yourself from a piece on the chessboard into the player controlling the game. Something remarkable happens when you stop reacting impulsively. The world begins to perceive you differently. Some people will feel confused, wondering why you no longer rise to their provocations. Others will feel frustrated because the control they once held over you slips through their fingers. And a few, though they may never admit it aloud, will respect you far more than before. For they will sense in you a calm, unshakable strength that they themselves do not possess. But the greatest transformation is not in how others see you. It is in how you begin to see yourself. When you are no longer a puppet to your emotions, when you no longer dance on the strings pulled by every insult or slight, a new freedom dawns. You realize that nothing external can rob you of your peace unless you give it permission. This shift is profound. Your mind grows quieter. Your body grows steadier. You begin to walk through life not as a leaf blown by the winds of circumstance, but as a mountain unmoved by storms. History remembers such people. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by treachery and war, remained steadfast because he understood that true power lay not in armies, but in self-mastery. Gandhi, faced with an empire's might, did not react with rage, but with disciplined calm that shook the world. These were men who turned non-reaction into a force greater than any weapon. And in your own life, the same principle holds. When you no longer meet fire with fire, you stop feeding the flames. Conflicts fizzle before they consume you. Provocations lose their sting. Even your relationships begin to shift as those around you adapt to the quiet gravity of your presence. It is here, in this transformation, that the first taste of being untouchable is found. For you discover that your strength is no longer measured by how loud you roar, but by how deeply you remain unshaken. There is a truth that few people ever understand. Attachment is the greatest weakness a person can have. Everything you cling to, everything you refuse to release, is exactly what keeps you vulnerable. Those who are truly untouchable have mastered the art of letting go. They do not chain themselves to people who drain them, to situations that no longer serve them, or to expectations that were never theirs to begin with. They know that what is truly meant for them does not require desperation. But here lies the problem. Most people never learn how to let go. We are taught that clinging is loyalty, that holding on is strength, and that walking away is defeat. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that detachment equals loss. Yet the opposite is true. To let go is not to lose. To let go is to free yourself. Carl Jung saw detachment as a necessary step in individuation, the process of becoming a whole, independent self. He understood that those who cannot release the past remain enslaved to it, dragging invisible chains that bleed their energy. Whether it is an old wound, a broken relationship, or a fading dream, refusal to let go binds us more tightly than any iron shackle. Other traditions echo this wisdom. In Buddhism, attachment is described as the root of suffering, the very reason why peace slips through our fingers. In the teachings of the Stoics, freedom begins not with owning more, but with needing less. Across cultures, the strongest souls are not those who accumulate endlessly, but those who release with grace. Think of how many times you have stayed in a place where you no longer belonged. How many times have you clung to a relationship that drained your spirit, terrified of the silence that would follow its end? How often have you tried to mold someone into the person you wished they were, instead of accepting who they truly are? The truth is painful but simple. Nothing that must be forced is ever truly yours. Nothing that costs you your peace is worth its price. To let go is not surrender. It is strength. It is the declaration that you refuse to be enslaved by fear, by guilt, by the illusion that holding on will save you. The act of release is the act of reclaiming yourself. If letting go were easy, everyone would do it. But the truth is, most people cling, not because what they hold is good, but because they are afraid of what life looks like without it. Fear is the chain that binds tighter than love ever did. Fear of being alone, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of regret, whispering that if you let go, you might lose something you will never find again. These fears wrap themselves around the heart, convincing you that carrying a burden is safer than setting it down. But here is the secret. When you finally face these fears, you discover they were never as large as you imagined. That relationship you swore you could not live without, once it ends, the silence it leaves slowly transforms into peace. That job you clung to out of security, once you release it, doors you never noticed begin to open. What once felt like loss begins to reveal itself as liberation. Try this exercise. Think of something you are struggling to let go of today. A memory, a relationship, a dream that has already died. Now ask yourself, what would happen if I simply stopped carrying this? Picture yourself setting it down as though it were a stone you've held for years. Imagine the lightness, the sudden breath of freedom. That sensation is the truth speaking. You were never meant to be weighed down forever. Jung often reminded us, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Letting go is not defeat. It is acceptance. Acceptance that certain people entered your life only to teach you, not to stay. Acceptance that some opportunities were never meant for you. Acceptance that cycles must end so that new ones can begin. History itself shows this rhythm of release. Civilizations rise and fall. Empires let go of conquered lands, willingly or not, and in the ashes, new cultures are born. Nature, too, reflects this law. Leaves must fall for the tree to live through winter. Rivers must release their waters to the sea. To let go is to remain in harmony with life's eternal cycle. The moment you realize this, fear loses its grip. You understand that holding on is not safety, it is suffocation. And release is not loss, it is the only path to renewal. There is one art that separates the truly untouchable from the rest, the art of silence. In a world where everyone rushes to explain, to prove, to be seen and heard, the one who knows how to remain quiet possesses an unparalleled advantage. Silence does not mean emptiness. It means control. Every unnecessary word you speak becomes a thread others can pull, a tool they can use against you. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier it is for others to reduce your value. Carl Jung often spoke of introspection, the capacity to turn inward, to hold your own truth without needing to parade it before the world. Powerful individuals understand this instinctively. They do not need to announce their intentions, reveal their strategies, or justify their decisions. Instead, they observe, they wait, and they allow their actions to speak louder than any declaration ever could. Throughout history, the most intriguing figures have been those wrapped in mystery. Leaders who revealed little of their inner thoughts forced others to speculate, and speculation always magnifies power. Napoleon was said to pause deliberately before answering questions, creating the impression that his words carried immense weight. Even spiritual figures, saints and sages alike, wielded silence as their greatest sermon. What people cannot decipher, they cannot dismiss, and often they cannot resist. In everyday life, the same principle applies. If you reveal every detail of your plans, you invite sabotage. If you explain every decision, you invite judgment. If you share every thought, you become ordinary, taken for granted. But when you speak less, when you reveal only what is necessary, curiosity grows around you. People begin to wonder what you are thinking, what you are planning, what you are capable of. Mystery creates gravity. And here is the paradox. Silence does not make you invisible. It makes you unforgettable. Most people live their lives putting others first. They bend, they sacrifice, they exhaust themselves in the endless pursuit of approval. But every time you place yourself last, you give someone else control over your life. You teach them that your time, your energy, and even your peace are worth less than their comfort. Carl Jung spoke often of individuation, the process of becoming a whole, independent being. But how can you ever be whole if you live fragmented, scattering pieces of yourself to please those who would never return the gift? Those who are truly untouchable understand this. Self-love is not arrogance, and self-prioritization is not selfishness. There is a difference. Selfishness is taking without giving. Self-love is giving without allowing yourself to be emptied. It is the ability to say yes from strength, not obligation. It is the courage to say no without drowning in guilt. Think of how often society conditions us to believe the opposite. From childhood, we are praised for obedience, rewarded for sacrifice, told that thinking of ourselves is shameful. Be generous, they said. Don't be selfish. And so we learn to pour endlessly from our cup, never noticing how empty it became. But those who become untouchable break this pattern. They understand that energy is precious and that not everyone deserves access to it. They set boundaries, not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. They know that if they do not respect themselves, no one else will. The change is immediate. When you prioritize yourself, people perceive you differently. You are no longer an easy option, someone who can be used at convenience. You become someone with standards, someone whose presence must be earned. And the truth is simple. People respect those who respect themselves. The first unshakable fact: if you do not prioritize yourself, you will always remain an option, never a priority. When you combine all of these truths, non-reaction, detachment, silence, and self-prioritization, you undergo a transformation that cannot be faked. You begin to radiate a presence that others can feel before you even speak. This is what it means to become unattainable. You stop chasing approval, and suddenly others begin to seek yours. You stop begging for love, and you become the one whose love is valued. You stop explaining yourself, and your mystery turns into magnetism. Power flows not from how loudly you demand attention, but from how effortlessly you command it. People sense it immediately. Some grow uncomfortable because they cannot manipulate you anymore. Some grow frustrated because the games they once played no longer work. And some, quietly, begin to admire you, even envy you, for possessing the calm, the strength, the independence that they themselves lack. The difference lies in energy. Those who are still chained by fear, by attachment, by the need to be liked, radiate desperation. But those who have mastered themselves radiate abundance. When you no longer fear losing anything, the world suddenly feels as though it has nothing it can take from you. And that is when people respect you most. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming whole within yourself, needing nothing from the outside world to define who you are. At this level, life changes. Opportunities begin to arrive without being forced. Relationships become more balanced because you are no longer willing to tolerate disrespect. Even the air around you feels different, lighter, sharper, untouchable. Think of the people you have met who carried this presence. They did not need to prove themselves. They did not beg for attention. And yet, when they walked into a room, everyone noticed. That is the energy of someone who has mastered themselves. And here lies the ultimate truth. Becoming unattainable is not about arrogance or distance. It is not about building walls. It is about rising into your highest self, so whole, so steady, so complete, that nothing external can shake your foundation. When you stop chasing, you become the magnet. When you stop begging, you become the prize. When you stop explaining, you become the mystery. and mystery always attracts. This is the power of the unattainable presence. This is the life that begins when you decide to protect your energy, to guard your peace, and to walk as someone who knows their worth.